The billionaire's mansion was silent, too silent for a home where over 50 staff worked day and night. The chandeliers sparkled above marble floors, but the house felt heavy, as though grief itself had moved in. On the top floor, behind a massive mahogany door, lay Richard Beaumont, one of the wealthiest men in the country, a man who owned airlines, factories, and sprawling estates. But tonight, none of his power, none of his money, could help him. 20 of the best doctors in the world had flown in, their private jets lining the mansion's runway, each summoned at an outrageous cost. They had been working around the clock for weeks, performing endless tests, prescribing rare medicines, consulting with one another. Yet the great Richard Beaumont only grew weaker, his once commanding voice now a hoarse whisper, his skin pale as candle wax. Time, one of the doctors murmured after checking his pulse, is not on his side. The room was filled with machines. Monitors, tubes, blinking lights, but for all their noise and expense, they were powerless. His children, standing by his bedside, were frantic. They argued, they cried, they demanded answers from the doctors who had none. But downstairs, in the servants' quarters, a quiet pair of eyes watched the unfolding drama. Her name was Grace. She was the housekeeper, an older black woman with gentle hands, sharp eyes, and a heart that had weathered storms. She had worked for the Beaumont family for nearly 20 years, often invisible, often overlooked. Grace had seen the rise and fall of countless guests, the way money changed people, the way power made them blind to little things. Tonight, as the doctors rushed back and forth, Grace stood in the hallway with her cleaning cloth, pretending to dust the banister. But she listened. And she noticed things no one else did. The challenge of ignorance. The first challenge was pride. Richard's children had grown up in wealth, surrounded by luxury, and they could not imagine that anyone outside of a doctor, or a millionaire like themselves, could possibly have the answer. When Grace tried to speak, when she softly said, "Excuse me, ma'am, may I suggest something?" one of the daughters waved her away. "Grace, please. This isn't the time. Leave it to the professionals." So she stayed silent. But her heart raced, because she had noticed something, a detail so small that the 20 doctors, buried in machines and charts, had overlooked. What Grace saw. For days, she had been changing the billionaire's sheets, cleaning the spilled medicine on the nightstand, wiping away the sweat from his forehead when no one else was looking. And every time, she smelled it, that faint, bitter scent on his breath. Not sickness, not decay. Something else. She remembered her own son, years ago, who had once fallen mysteriously ill. Doctors had misdiagnosed him 3 times before a local nurse discovered the truth, food poisoning from mold hidden in a loaf of bread. The smell, the weakness, the slow fading, it was exactly the same. Grace's heart pounded. Could it be something so simple? Could a billionaire be dying not from an incurable disease, but from something hiding in plain sight? The breaking point. That night, Richard's condition worsened. The doctors prepared the family for the worst. His son collapsed in a chair, whispering, "Billions, and we can't even buy him another day." Grace knew she couldn't stay silent any longer. She walked into the room, her apron still tied around her waist, and cleared her throat. "I know I'm just the housekeeper," she said softly, "but I think I see something you've missed." The room froze. The doctors glanced at each other, annoyed. His daughter bristled. "Grace, this is not your place." But Richard's weak hand lifted slightly, trembling. His voice cracked as he whispered, "Let her speak." And so she did. She described the smell, the similarity to what had once nearly killed her son, the possibility of poisoning, not by intention, but by something in the food, the water, or the very air. The truth revealed. Reluctantly, one of the younger doctors ran additional tests based on Grace's words. Hours later, the truth exploded like lightning. It wasn't a rare disease. It wasn't untreatable. Richard Beaumont was slowly being poisoned by toxic mold hidden in the ventilation system above his bedroom. For months, he had been breathing it in every night, growing weaker while the world's greatest doctors searched for exotic answers. Grace had seen what 20 doctors missed. The healing. Once the mold was removed and Richard began a new course of treatment, his health slowly returned. Color came back to his face, his voice grew stronger, and for the first time in months, he stood by his window and watched the sunrise. He turned to Grace, tears shining in his eyes. "You saved my life," he whispered. Not my doctors, not my money, you. The family, humbled, apologized for ignoring her. The doctors, some embarrassed, admitted they had been too focused on their charts to notice the human details. Grace only smiled, her hands folded quietly in front of her apron. Sometimes, she said, you just need to look with your heart, not your wallet. The inspiring message. Richard Beaumont lived, but more importantly, he changed. He invested millions into improving the homes of his staff, into health programs for low-income families, into scholarships for children who wanted to study medicine. And every time someone asked him why, he answered, because a housekeeper once saved my life when 20 doctors could not. Closing for YouTube. And that, dear viewers, is the story of how wisdom, humility, and love can outshine even the greatest wealth. It reminds us that no matter your title, your race, or your position in life, your voice matters. Sometimes the answers to the greatest problems come from the most unexpected places. Now I want to hear from you. What did you feel during this story? Do you think people underestimate the wisdom of ordinary workers? Comment your thoughts below, because I'd love to read them. And if this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to my channel, Be Kind Always, where we bring you powerful stories that remind us of compassion, resilience, and the hidden strength of everyday heroes. Because in the end, kindness is the wealth that never fades.